From being turned away at the door to being threatened with violence while waiting to get inside a worship experience, there's a major problem I'm noticing within these Christian events, and I want to talk about it. Gosh, this is going to take a whole lot of people off. Hey, bestie, welcome back. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Kat, your branding bestie. This is Creatives Collective Company, my branding agency. And here on this channel, I'm marrying my love of pop culture commentary and my passion for branding. And we're going to look at different situations from an analytical branding lens. I know why you're here. I know you saw my title. Today, we're going to talk about mass worship experiences, the issues I've seen arise in them, my theory on solutions, and of course, I'm going to bring us in it and see what we can learn for our own businesses from these different matters. Okay, before we start, I want to give some warnings. First, this video is not indicative of the typical subject matter that I cover. As I was saying in the intro, I do like to look more at pop culture. I'll take that, we bring it back here, I analyze, we dissect and discuss, see what we can learn for our own businesses, and then send you on your merry way. And we do still have that in this episode. However, it is focused on Christian matters, a Christian subject. And so you may hear me use terms that are considered Christianese. And I totally get it. If that's not your cup of tea, please feel free to skip this video and you will be able to see me next week. We'll be back on pop culture and yeah, I'll see you then. Secondly, if you are looking for an in-depth analysis bashing the church, you're not going to find that here. I am a Christian. I love the church, and I believe that there are people, especially the ones that I'm talking about today, who have a heart to actually make a positive impact for the kingdom of God with people. And it's because of that heart that I feel led to have the discussion that I want to lead today. Finally, and a big finally, this video is fully my opinion, and it may be inflammatory for some people. And while I do fully understand that we have differences of opinions and I can come to appreciate it, I am not going to go back and forth with you in the comments, especially if I can tell that you didn't watch the full video. So, with that having been said, I do love dialogue. So please feel free. If you have thoughts, express your thoughts below, and I will be happy to read them. If it's something we can have a discussion on, let's do it. But I do want us to remain respectful. My heart is that you hear everything I have to say and see if any of it resonates with you. Now that all of the warnings are out of the way, let's delve in and discuss. Okay, I want to start with the lore. I want to give you a little context to what it is and who it is I'm talking about. 2819 is a church based in Atlanta, pastored by a fellow New Yorker, Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell. The church had already been growing pretty rapidly in 2024, but it reached a whole new level, fever pitch by the end of it, because Pastor Philip was invited to speak at a conference called Acts 242. From there, people were so inspired by the word of God that he shared that they were traveling outside of the country. People were coming from Canada. People were traveling hours out of the way, coming in at 2 and 3 a.m. to line up by 6 a.m. to get into one of the services. All three services were filled to capacity, both in the auditorium and in their overflow, and they had to turn people away. And I totally get it. I've had the pleasure of attending 2819 a few times, and what I can say is that Pastor Philip is very fiery and passionate about the Word of God. He speaks fully from the Bible, and he encourages you to look to it and not him. And I love it. I eat it for brunch. He's awesome. The church is awesome. What the Lord is doing there is really amazing. October 12th, 2025, 2819, that was a lot of numbers, held a free prayer and worship event at State Farm Arena. It was Pastor Philip's hope to even fill the stadium with 20,000 people. He felt that it was ambitious to do, but he felt like the Lord had called him to do it, and so he stepped out and he did. And boy, did the people show up. Not shockingly, not only did 20,000 people came, 40,000 plus people came. They filled the stadium, they filled the overflow building, and then when there was no room there, people stayed and worshiped in the streets. And by many accounts, it was an incredible experience, and they felt the move of God. They had an encounter. People saw miraculous things happening, and people just felt revitalized. So from many people's perspective, it was great. And even those who didn't get into the event had a positive outlook because they felt that the worship that broke out um, in those waiting areas or in those outside areas, of course, was just as powerful. And I believe them. However, issues that were taking place prior to the event were starting to poke its way to the surface. People were starting to express how they were disappointed because they traveled for hours to get there, waited in line in the heat for hours, only to get up to the door and not get in, or worse, being cut in line by people, threatened with violence by said people, and then missing out on getting to the event because those people cut them in line. Overall, there was quiet, I will say very quiet complaints in comments and some brave souls even in video about the lack of direction and order that should have been there for an event of this magnitude. And the reactions that came from people in those comments were interesting. And by interesting, I mean dismissive at the surface and willfully dismissive at its core. For every comment that was honest about their experience or their disappointment in the event, there was at least 2 to 3 times the comments shaming them, even going so far as to question their true intentions for showing up and dismissing their feelings. Now, there's a personal reason why I'm drawn to having this conversation. And no, I did not attend 2819's Access Conference. I knew better than to try because I knew the culture altogether at that church is to not is the lines, is possibly not getting in. That's just part of the culture at that church. And I knew I wasn't trying to risk showing up there and not getting in. I knew the likelihood was very high. And I was right. So I respectfully bowed out. I said, no, thank you. You guys got it. I will be worshiping from the home. And I did. But I have gone to events similar to that and have experienced the same kind of disorder that I saw in the comments as they were described. I went to an event and there was a lack of direction with the line. There was no order at all. Now they did have ticketing even though it was a free event. But that didn't mean anything because you could wait in line, as I did, for an hour and a half, and people can cut right in front of you right when the doors open up. And there were no ramifications. They didn't have anyone to direct people, correct people, put them in the back of the line or anything like that for trying something like that. But they did have personnel who was willing to put their arms up and keep you from walking in the front section where the reserved seats were. Then on top of that, the event was over an hour late. It was supposed to start in 1 hour. An hour later, the speaker just showed up. And so I've had my experiences of going to a church event and it not being the best experience as far as the beginning. Of course, the event was great. And despite that, you do have a good experience, I guess, but you do have to push past that negative first portion that you had. And it is a struggle to continue pushing past it, especially when you see the same people shoving you in line, worshiping and weeping on the floor. So, I think I think the overall culture of the church is to just overlook the disorder because God is still moving. So you shouldn't say anything. If you do say something, your heart's not in the right place. You're out of order. And I don't think that should be the case. I don't think it should not be the case. It should not be so. Something had to be said. The reasons why the culture seems to be so the reasons why the culture seems so favored toward ignoring these issues and even shaming those who bring them up, saying that their heart is not in the right place, they're not mature, they need to mature, that God's still moving in these things. So why say something? Those reasons for why they're saying things like that and reacting the way that they are nuanced and layered, and a conversation that I'm not going to delve into on this channel. However, I do want to turn the attention to what this chaos is and why it's taking place from a branding perspective and what it presents to people. Now, if I get some views on this video, I know that what I just said, as far as calling the church a brand, is going to be a turnoff, and people will probably rev up those fingers right on that point. But hold on a second, because I'm not talking branding, lights, cameras, logos, and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about using the knowledge of what your audience needs, meaning the congregation. Who are you reaching? Who are you talking to? And tailoring and making sure that their experience connects to them in every level. And when you take scoot the church aside, and I'm talking branding for now, when you talk about a brand, you utilize things like understanding what colors connect the most, what colors convey what message, what your marketing and messaging says. How are you drawing people in? Are you being funny? Are you being more emotionally connected? You understand that these nuances within your audience, the understanding these things hold favor for you. So you utilize these things to the best of your ability so that you're serving that person, serving those people to the best of your ability. And so I believe that all of those factors are important in the church as well. We serve God by serving others. And so for us to serve others, we have to have in mind what their needs are, what their pain points are. What do we need to talk to? What do we need to touch on? Are these people more averse to humor, or are they currently being moved by being inspired by hearing the harsh truth in the Bible? You have to understand the nuances of that, but also what is a huge portion, a huge factor, especially for people who aren't a part of the church, who are new to an experience within your church, is tailoring the experience to making sure that God has room to show his excellence from the moment that they show up to the moment they leave. You set the atmosphere for God the second that they pull in the parking lot. And then the hope is that by the time they pull out of the parking lot with you, after the experience they have within those four walls, they are leaving revived, refreshed, and desiring more of God and ready to come back next week for the next refill. So all of these factors are important, and we may not look at it this way, but that is branding. That is caring about your client or your customer's experience and making sure that what you're offering is helping them. Because if you're not helping them, who are you serving? Now, what exactly went wrong at this event? One, there was a lack of overall direction with where the line stood. There were no lines. It was just a crowd of people with vague understandings of where the entry points were into the building.
This line is crazy long. I just got here for the State Farm event thing, bro. This line is crazy. It's like 3 different lines. Like, look at the lines, bro.
I saw accounts of people who, although they traveled for hours, had stood and waited in line. They were standing in one area for hours, only to find out that that entry point was not being opened. The other entry point was being opened, and they missed their opportunity to get in there because they were on the other side of the building. Had there been queue ropes or personnel who directed where the line started, there was personnel out there, I will give them that, but there was no direction with where the line started. They would give directives and people didn't listen. But again, if there were a queue, like a rope queue where people had to snake in, I think that, not even think, I know that the issues that were being dealt with there, or they saw there, would not be there. You have to think, Georgia Aquarium is the largest aquarium in the United States in general. They see 20,000 people come in and out per day, not counting staff. And yet you never hear of them having a jam up, or people not being able to get in, or people having to rush into the doors, or being at capacity. No, there are people who are able to get in. They're able to get in there in an orderly fashion, and they're not facing being crowded or not having a direction on where to start. They are in order. So it can be done. It can be done with a crowd that large. Secondly, there was no ticket or head count. Now, while yes, it was a free event, first come, first serve, the amount of people that I saw share an account of traveling across the country, traveling pregnant, standing in the heat, being close to the door only to be met with being at capacity at the door and having the door shut in their face, it was staggering. even with that, so many people expressed gratitude for even being able to be a part of the experience. And those who had the audacity to show that they were disappointed were quickly corrected and reprimanded as if they were children. And I say, and I quote, "Now is the moment we give all praise and glory to him," talking about God. "This is not about us." And yes, that is true. But what's also true is someone being disappointed in the fact that the lack of organization costed them. They traveled from out of state. They came from Florida, according to that comment. Both can be true. We have a God that, yes, can move despite this inconveniences. And if we choose to focus on him and focus on what he's calling us to in that moment, we can have a beautiful moment, a beautiful encounter with him. But he also is a God of order and timing. He values time, he values order. God moves in order. So while yes, I get it, there were some people whose hearts were not in the right place and that correction was needed. Those who were legitimately affected by the lack of order that the follow up or the lead up to this event caused, they were legitimate in their right to be disappointed. They had every right to share that they were disappointed. And I believe that we are robbing the church of an opportunity to improve and to further align themselves with the image of God when we try to pretend like these issues are not issues and then shaming people for expressing the truth. Because it's not like it's hurting the church. It's helping us to improve and to present God better. Now, couple this issue with the free ticketing with the ability to cut in line. There were so many people confused about the entry points, as I said, that when they realized that it was opening in one area, they bum rushed that area and cut people in line. And there was violence, there were fights that were breaking out. And there was just a lot of chaos that was caused because of the lack of ticketing and also because of the lack of personnel that really ensured that the order was kept. And an issue that I did not think about was the issue of no security and overflow. I didn't know that there wasn't security and overflow, but when I did read it or share, someone shared a full video of it.
But let me tell you something about the overflow. Everybody just piled in there. So while the stadium is checking bags and doing all these things, the overflow, everyone's just running in. And that's dangerous.
Many people did not take into account the fact that there was no security. Now, another factor in all this that I did not mention is that there was a protest going on against the prayer and worship experience from this group called the Hebrew Israelites. I've not done any research on them. I've not enough for me to bring it up to this video, but I do know that they are, I'm sorry, specifically the Black Hebrew Israelites. They believe they are the only true people of God and that Black people are the true race. It's foolishness. I'm not going to give any light to that. But I say that I mention them because with there not being any security line or security check at all, and you just freely entered this building, you then put those people at risk to being put in harm's way because they were marching up and down the street. They were cursing and screaming obscenities to people while they were waiting in line. It very well could have been a violent incite, and there was no security to ensure those people in overflow were safe. All of these issues obviously find their foundation in a lack of systems, a lack of logistics, and a lack of planning and order, and not fully grasping how dire these things are for them in these events. You have to remember, again, this is not long lines, people not getting in. This stuff is not new to 2819. This, again, they've engrafted into being part of the culture. My opinion, I believe that we are witnessing a church that grew so rapidly that now they have to catch up to the growth that they have leapt into. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that it's great. I think God has grace for that. But again, as I mentioned earlier, when we don't, when we're not honest with the true experience of these things, when we don't make that voice heard, when we don't allow them to truly hear the grievances that took place, we are robbing the church of the opportunity to be able to truly be an example and a reflection of Christ the way that we know him to be. So, what can we take away from this as businesses, as entrepreneurs? What does this have to do with everything in general, every one of us across the board. As a Christian, we know and understand that our businesses are not just businesses, they are our ministry. These gifts and talents are given to us by God, and we have the ability to share those things and shine for Him in unique ways. It isn't always just holding a Bible, it is connecting with a person, hearing their story, and truly empathizing with them. There are so many people who will not darken the doors of a church, who will come and work with you, and you're the only Christ that they will see. What kind of image are you showing? Are you showing the excellence of the God that we serve? Or are you showing someone who lacks order, who's only out here for a dollar, who's not really worried about their experience? You know, the Lord told me something one time. I tend to go for walks. I go for prayer walks, and he'll talk to me. And one thing I remember him saying was, Catherine, are you a crumb that's leading someone closer to God, or are you an obstacle someone has to step over to get to me? And that has stuck with me. And I'm going to say the same thing to you. We have to get on it. We cannot afford to be giving a shoddy image of our God. We are in dire times. People are desperate. People are needing kindness. People are needing to see the light of God. This is where we should be shining the brightest. And we have the opportunity. We have got to step up. And even if you're not a Christian, kudos for hanging out if you did. That's awesome. What if you're the only light that someone sees? What if you're the only brightness in someone's day? We have to have our hearts and minds on the people that we're serving. That is bottom line. Well, that was fun. If you hung out this far, thank you so much for listening to me, hearing my heart behind the situation, and I hope it gave you some inspiration and even encouragement or a kick in the tush you need to start your own journey to making sure that your brand or whatever services you offer is being presented in excellence. So, I have resources. I have a branding agency, as I shared earlier in the beginning, and I have everything from consultations, branding, I mentor people one-on-one, to group coaching courses as well. If you're interested in hearing more about that, shoot me an email. That will be in my bio. Yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I will see you next week. I can't wait for you to hear the next subject. It is really fun. And yeah, see you next Sunday. Bye.